Title: My uncle stole my inheritance and left us homeless. I made him lose everything. Hey, Reddit. This one's been a long time coming. I never thought I'd be the type to pull off something like this, but when someone robs you of your future, sometimes you have to take it back. By force, if you have to. This story is about my uncle, Rob. He was my dad's older brother and the sleaziest man I've ever known. Always the type to show up late, leave early, and somehow walk away richer than everyone else. My dad was the opposite: quiet, hardworking, too trusting for his own good. When my dad died suddenly of a heart attack, it crushed us. I was 19, just starting college. My mom was a mess, and my little brother was only 14. But we had one small piece of stability. Dad had left behind a life insurance policy and a will. Nothing massive, but enough to pay off the house, keep my brother in school, and help Mom stay afloat. Except, that money never came. We waited and waited. The lawyer handling the estate stopped returning our calls. Bills piled up. We had to sell the car. Then the house. I ended up dropping out of college to help Mom find work. She went from being a stay-at-home mom to scrubbing offices at night just to keep the lights on. It wasn't until over a year later that I learned the truth, by accident. A family friend mentioned how generous Uncle Rob had been when he took care of everything after Dad died. I pressed harder, and finally, someone showed me a copy of the revised will. Rob had convinced my dad to name him the executor just months before his death, and when Dad passed, Rob used that power to drain the life insurance payout, sell off his business assets, and transfer the remaining savings into a trust for himself. All totally legal, thanks to the way he manipulated the paperwork. My mom was supposed to get everything. Instead, she got nothing. I saw red. But I knew storming into his mansion and screaming wouldn't fix anything. He was too slick, too careful, and worst of all, well-connected. I needed to play this smart. So I waited. I worked 2 jobs, lived cheap, and started studying everything about trusts, asset protection, shell companies, all the dirty tricks guys like him use to stay untouchable. Then I got a job at a financial investigations firm under a fake name. My real education began there. Over the next 3 years, I learned how to follow money, how to dig up documents people thought they buried, how to talk like a banker, act like a lawyer, and write like an auditor. By 24, I was ready, and Uncle Rob had no idea I was coming. I started small, looking for any crack in his empire. Rob was cocky, always flaunting his wealth and success, but he was careless. I began by digging into his finances. He kept everything in the name of a dozen shell companies, companies that didn't exist on paper, but all the trails led back to him. I wasn't just looking for proof of his betrayal. I wanted something bigger, and I found it. Uncle Rob had been hiding assets, significant ones, across several offshore accounts, cleverly disguised as business expenses. One of these accounts had been used to siphon off large sums of money from my dad's business before he passed. That was my opening. I didn't need to go after the money directly. No, I needed something that would make his entire operation crumble. Rob had an addiction to status. He was a big spender in the social scene. His ego was tied to the image he projected of being an untouchable kingpin. That's where I would strike. I started playing the game his way, showing up at the right events, using the right contacts, always staying in the background. I became a ghost. I befriended people who had dirt on Rob, people he'd wronged in the past, and gradually earned their trust. I learned all about his business deals, his secret meetings with corrupt officials, and how he was laundering money to keep his empire afloat. Every conversation was a piece of the puzzle. Eventually, I got my hands on a couple of records that could expose Rob for all his shady dealings, including his manipulation of the trust and how he used my dad's death to cover up his theft. But this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about completely dismantling everything he'd worked for and exposing him to the world. I made a few discreet phone calls. The right people started to notice Rob's business ventures. A few investigators began to take an interest in his operations, And once they started poking around, it didn't take long for them to find the cracks. His money laundering scheme was too sloppy for him to hide forever. Then I made my move. I sent the records I'd collected to the press. Every little detail about Rob's lies, deceit, and manipulation was out in the open for everyone to see. I didn't just expose his financial crimes, I exposed the man behind them. And that's when everything started to fall apart. The media picked it up fast. Local outlets ran with the headline, "Prominent businessman accused of embezzling funds from late brother's estate." And just like that, the tide turned. Rob's name was suddenly toxic. His business partners pulled out, clients dropped him. His social circle evaporated overnight. But the real damage came when the feds got involved. Turns out, some of the money Rob had hidden overseas came from more than just my dad's estate. He had been skimming off investment funds, underreporting earnings, and falsifying tax documents for years. I didn't even have to lift a finger once the authorities stepped in. My job was done. All I had to do was watch. His accounts were frozen, properties seized, investigators raided his offices and pulled years of documents. The guy who once lived like royalty was suddenly struggling to pay legal fees. And because the trust he used to steal my family's money was created under false pretenses, it was now part of the ongoing fraud investigation. That meant restitution. Rob was forced to liquidate most of his assets to cover the back taxes, fines, and debts. Part of that went to us. Finally. My mom cried when she got the check. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. Enough to pay off her debts. Enough to put my brother through college. Enough to feel like we could breathe again. But for me, it still wasn't finished, because Rob wasn't just losing money, he was losing face. His carefully curated empire was crumbling, and all the people he once looked down on were watching. I didn't hide who I was anymore. I sent him a letter, just a simple one. No threats, no gloating, just one line. "Everything you stole came from family." I just took it back. He never responded, but I know he read it. How? Because a week later, he skipped town. Word is, he's hiding out in some dingy apartment, living off scraps. No more flashy suits, no more high-end cars, no more respect, just a broken man and the legacy he destroyed with his own greed. I don't feel sorry for him, not for a second. People like Rob, people who take and take, even from their own blood, they don't deserve sympathy. They deserve consequences. And Rob got his, in full. The best part? No one in the family defends him anymore. Not even the ones who used to suck up to him at holidays for gifts and handouts. Once the truth came out, they all distanced themselves like cockroaches scattering when the lights come on. And me? The troubled niece who dropped out of college and held a grudge for too long? I'm the one they come to now when they need advice or help. But I don't forget. I don't forgive. My mom's got her dignity back. She volunteers now at a local shelter and gardens on weekends. My brother's about to graduate with honors. As for me, I started my own consulting firm helping victims of financial abuse, because what happened to us happens more than people think, and most of them don't have the time, skills, or patience to do what I did. But I did it. I waited years, learned everything, stayed quiet, and then dismantled a predator's empire piece by piece. And I don't care how petty it sounds. I enjoyed it. Some people think revenge is a waste of energy, that you should let karma do the work. But here's the truth. Sometimes you have to be karma.